Thank you for joining us today. Anything you hear in this podcast is not to be taken for medical advice. This podcast is for information purposes only, and should you find something interesting in the information spoken about, please consult your physician further.
Welcome to the Broken Road Podcast. I'm your host, Trent Peterson. Today, I'm joined by my good friend, Jeremy Lasso. How you doing, Jeremy?
Doing good.
So, Jeremy was my physical therapist at the Baylor Day Neuro program. Took me a long ways, and I consider him a close friend now through everything that we went through. He does it on a daily basis, and I felt like there was no lack of attention to my recovery, even though there were many other people that you were also helping at the same time. So I just wanted to kind of start that way. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeremy?
Doing good. Okay. Kind of moved around growing up and everything like that, but I still call Bowie, Texas home. Small town, about 5,000 people, few streetlights. Doing good. Went to school my freshman year at Midwestern State and then decided to transfer to Oklahoma Christian. Finished out my undergrad there. And then I went to graduate school at OU for PT. And then after I graduated, I was in Oklahoma about 8 years. And then when I graduated, I moved down to Corpus Christi, where my mom moved when I was in college. So I moved down there. I was there for about 3 years. And then my best friend who was living up here set me up with a girl that was up in North Texas. And so I ended up moving back up to North Texas.
Yeah, cool. So I know that the process, I mean, through our time together, I learned that the process to become a physical therapist is not the easiest thing to do. That it takes a lot of dedication. What kind of led you to even go in that direction or be in that field?
Sure. So when I was in high school, I got to about junior, senior year. I was like, oh, I should probably decide like which college I'm going to, what I'm going to study, all that kind of stuff. I didn't really know what I was gonna study. Knew I was good at math and stuff like that, but when I was a senior in high school during track season, I kind of just overdid it, and I ended up. We don't have athletic trainers in Bowie for when I was there. We had a physical therapist and a PTA, so I had to go to them during track season. That's the kind of like spring of right before graduating, and saw what they did. I was like, man, this is what I want to do. And then so that's how I kind of got into the field.
Cool. So I was sitting here trying to look back at my notes real quick. I get I get lost pretty quick. I think there's other things I learned about as far as becoming a physical therapist that I wasn't aware of. And you're specialized also in your field, correct?
Yeah. So, as a physical therapist, when you are applying to a PT school, you have to have some kind of undergraduate degree. Doesn't matter what it is. Going to Oklahoma Christian, smaller school, usually a lot of the prereqs for PT school is biology related. So I was a biology major. I had a friend in PT or in undergrad. He was a Bible major, but he got all the prereqs at the same time, so that way he could go. And then getting in, so you got to have the 4 year undergrad graduate degree. And then for PT school, most of them is about a 3 year doctorate program. And so it's not a PhD program, but it's a clinical doctorate. So through clinicals and then the other research that you will do, you get a clinical doctorate at the end, which has changed over the last like 10, 15 years, which it was a master's program. And then 20, 30 years ago, it was just a bachelor's program. So there's a lot more in the schooling. One of the biggest things that we do in PT school now for that doctorate too is differential diagnosis. So that way we can have more autonomy, but we want to make sure what we're treating is what we're treating, and we're not missing any key things. And so that's where that differential diagnosis comes in.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I didn't know the wording for it or the differential diagnosis, but it was something that I wanted to bring up. And since you did, we can go ahead and go there. One thing I did notice and watched you when you worked with other people and what you did with me is that when I came in there thinking of a physical therapist, I really was thinking more like, okay, this guy's going to stretch me, I'm going to, rehab whatever. Um, but he actually looked at my body as a whole, and looked at me as a whole. So you weren't just dealing with necessarily my muscles. You were dealing with, why are my muscles doing what they're doing? Or why is my body doing what it's doing? Why is my head moving this way while I'm walking? Or, I don't know a really good way to describe that, but you were looking at a lot more than just like one piece. You were looking at me as a whole. So is that kind of what differential diagnosis is? Is that, I know it's a simplified,
I don't
probably.
I don't I don't actually think I would call it that. Differential diagnosis would be more as like, okay, make sure that a stroke is the diagnosis you're having, and that not like you have something
Okay.
else going on.
Okay.
And so making sure you don't have like a blood clot going on versus it's just calf pain or something like that.
So
Um,
So really, yeah, I mean, that was just the way I took it. Obviously, I was way off base on that, but that is how you treated me.
yeah,
Um, so if you are able to do that, I mean, really, so what are your credentials then, or what's the wording that goes after your name whenever you're
yeah.
ready?
So from a legal standpoint, hopefully I get it right, right? But it's always like when I sign notes and stuff like that, it's always PT and then DPT. So I'm a physical therapist, but then a doctorate of physical therapy.
Right.
And so then, technically, like when I don't refer to myself as Dr. Lasso a lot because it feels weird. But when I got married, all my invitations all had Dr. Lasso on it and everything like that. So if you ever watch the TV show Friends with Ross Geller and him being a doctor, but for the dinosaurs, that's how I feel sometimes. But just because I never want anybody to confuse, because a lot of people when they hear doctor, they immediately go to a physician. And yeah, I work very hard for my degree and like I am the Dr. Lasso. And but I want to make sure people, they understand there is a difference obviously between me and then a physician because I can't do a lot of things they do. And then I also get to spend a lot of time with my patients. And that's why I always say, I get so close with my patients, we're working with you guys day after day, week after week, month after month. Is like it becomes a more it's a friendly environment, not a very formal and everything like that.
Absolutely. No, and I think what y'all do is really special. I try to drive it home. Um, Anytime I'm visiting with a therapist or somebody that does what you do, okay, there, and I do differentiate between my time with a doctor and my time with you. I did have a lot more time. Um, Doctors just boom, 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 plugging them out, and they kind of looking at your chart. It's just different. I don't know. I feel like y'all are really don't get the credit for the amount of work that you put in and the results that you're able to get back out. To me, y'all are unsung heroes and should be more on the list of, and I realize this would probably, being the humble person you are, you're not going to take it that way. But for me, y'all should be on a list with first responders and, and the doctors, everybody that kind of get the spotlight. Y'all don't really get a whole lot of spotlight.
Behind the scenes a lot.
Absolutely, but doing such great things, amazing things. I had no idea, and I wouldn't have known until I was there. So, I really want to make sure and try to spotlight that the best I can through this podcast and through the nonprofit, because eventually, I think everybody is going to need some kind of therapy at some point in their life, whether they realize it or not.
And then, that's a lot of the research is going to just, one of the things with our aging populations, people are living longer. And so they are, and now, more surgeries can fix certain things. And then one of the biggest thing that has a lot of money from the insurance and stuff is from stroke recovery. And so the longer we live, more that's going to happen. And so PTs, everybody's talking about AI and how AI is going to replace things. You're never going to have a AI be able to replace the hands-on approach that the PTs have. So I get a little job security there.
Yeah, I agree. That's of course I can't do what I did before, but construction was my industry. and always said, there's a certain amount that AI will not be able to replace when it comes to that. And I agree with what you do. I think AI is going to be a great thing, and it's going to be a very awesome assistant. But
Let it write my notes for me. I'll do all the treatment, but let the
yeah,
AI
that would
write my
be
notes for
great.
me.
Yeah, transcript this for me, please. Thank you.
Yeah,
I got other things I got patients to take care of.
yeah.
I know a
And I
lot
mean,
a
like,
lot.
if the documentation time went down with AI, then we could have more time per patient. Because that's one of the biggest things. Is like, we have only so many hours in a day, but we have to have part of that be with documentation. So
And documentation, while we're there on that, um, from your end, and very lightly touching on it, is very important for continued therapy for patients. That's a big part of what you're doing there, is documenting the progress that's going on, for the insurance companies, correct?
yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that we get taught in PT school is like all of our goals need to be patient specific to you guys. It's like what do the patients or clients, however you want to say it, what do they want to get back to? What do they want to work on? And so it's like I have like when I talk to everybody, it's like, this is what we're shooting for. I have to do these certain objective outcomes, like a walking test, balance test, because that's what insurance wants. And so that's how I can, justify, and I have to use the documentation to justify that. And sometimes insurance will look at that and then say that's fine. And sometimes, most recently, I had a run in with an insurance, and they refused everything. And it's one of the most frustrating things for me is because I knew the patient um, could have just a way better outcome if they could have just stayed with us a little bit longer. And I know going home, they aren't going to have the same resources that we have there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a heartbreaker. Something that I saw a big push for the Broken Road Project nonprofit for me when I was there, was watching that process unfold multiple times. I was very blessed and fortunate that my insurance did carry me through, not only the inpatient, but the day neuro and then outpatient after that. I was very blessed on that end, but not everybody is, and not all the insurances are made equal, obviously.
Yeah, I work in healthcare, and I still have a very small understanding of insurance. So like, I can't imagine just anybody else like trying to figure out like what insurance they should have, what is covered, everything like that. And you don't even know those things until you actually switch to it, and then you try to see if it's covered, and you don't know that. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm reading a book right now called Forces for Good. It's about nonprofits. And I didn't realize it when I started this, but advocacy is a big part of that. I'd already hoped that I could mobilize other people to help with advocacy just for patients in general. Um, because I did see moments when I was in the hospital, things like that, where if I had a little bit more information or understood a little bit better in those times of the hustle, I understand that everybody's busy. And I'm not talking about when I got down to day neuro, but just through my process, where it would have been nice to have somebody there with me that actually understood what was going on around me, and could slow things down for just a second to do that. So, um, in that book, that's the start, and will be something we do. But I am starting to see future wise that there will probably be at a point, if this goes direction, I hope it does, that we will be addressing on a bigger stage problems with insurance. I know that is such a huge um, mountain or hurdle. I know I'm not the first person and won't be the last person, but there needs to be some adjustment on that. So, um, I think on one of these questions here, well, I guess we could start with me, because a lot of people look at me these days. Now, the people that knew me, my friends, family, they understand a little bit more, but somebody on the street, other than maybe the occasional hitch in my step or a little slower walk, probably will not recognize that what I went through can you, and you did the first eval on me in inpatient, which was a random thing too. So would you mind kind of just going through the process with me from your perspective? I give you permission to talk about it today, and just kind of explain uh, how I came to you and what you had to do to get me to where I'm at today.
Yeah, so I don't work. I've been a PT. I think going on about 7 years.
Excuse me.
My first like year, I kind of worked long term acute care, and then I worked inpatient rehab for about 3 years, and then I was able to transition to day neuro. However, I did get cross trained at the location where I'm at to work inpatient rehab. And so I work about one day a year. Some people are like, oh, you can just work one day a month, make a little bit extra money. I've decided I work about one day a year, and that happened to be that one day
Oh wow.
a year was when you got there. Um, so I know a lot of times I don't remember too much about the first initial eval for you upstairs, anything like that. I just remember the day that I worked with you. I was like, uh, when you work inpatient rehab, most of the time you get people that are much older than you, in
Right.
their 70s, 80s. It's like, why do I have this young guy on my schedule? Why is he here? And then just reading through it. And before I saw you that day, I saw you working with occupational therapy. They had you in the harness. That way you could be up, moving around. And then when I got to you, I was like, man, like he's going through something right now. Every like when you have a neurological injury like you did, it's a traumatic event.
Mhm.
It's trauma that you had to go through, and that's one of the reasons I always tell people about like counseling and neuropsych, everything like that, just because you guys are going through so much that I see a glimpse of, but then I don't know everything about that. But, working with you that first day in inpatient rehab, I definitely overestimated what you could do. I remember walking and I was like, okay, well, just I don't even know how far it is from like the gym. You can do like a circle, and got you out there and got to the hand around. I was like, oh man, he is done. So I remember I was like, all right, you stay here, don't fall over. I'm gonna go get a chair and bring you back. And so, just that first day, and then I was like, "Man, this guy would be perfect for our day neuro program," is what I was thinking about. I was like, "Man, he lives," talking with, your wife that day, I was like, "Man, he lives too far away. There's no way this is gonna happen." So I didn't even really think about much. And then, I know, Nelson, physical therapist, was your main physical therapist while you're up there, and then at some point, just, me working day neuro, but seeing you guys working so hard, and then I get the message that, "Oh, Trent's coming down to day neuro." I'm like, great. And it's like, oh, and then we have three teams in day neuro of PTs, OT, speech. So it's like, it's just like whoever like caseload wise needs the next patient, and then just getting blessed to be get you on my team. I felt very blessed for that, and I think that is one of the great things about if we did work more inpatient rehab, especially with people that are coming down to day neuro, I think we can build that relationship even earlier. um and then just from an inpatient or going to like the day neuro side, working with you, you you were moving around, but it was very scary. That's what I always tell my patients. I was like, "Yeah, well, we're up and moving, but, my, heart ticks a little bit faster every time we're moving around." And the working with you is just the goals is always, it's like I want to get you back as high as level as possible.
Mhm.
It's like we'd love to get to that prior level of function, but like you said, I never saw you before any of this, so I didn't know that Trent. I know the Trent now, and so we got to work on all of those things. And I had a student for part of your time while you were here, and part of theirs is taking over the caseload. And I told him, I was like, you were, you may not see Trent that much because he's my buddy, and I want to see him, and I want to treat him, and I want to work with him.
Mhm.
But from a, you talk about seeing the whole body earlier, and there's the saying, it's like, can you see the forest through the trees? And so that is what we had to look at. It's like looking at your body, seeing how it responds to anything moving around, And then what can we do first just to get that independence, right? It's like we
Right.
want to be able to you walk around, not feel like you're gonna fall over, not feel like you need to use an assisted device. You know, you had the walking canes. And
Mhm.
then, really it's like I get to that point where it's like, hey, I can walk through Walmart and people can't just observe that, hey, what's wrong with him? It's
Right.
like, am I not seeing any hitch in your walking and stuff like that? Um,
For
and I
sure.
feel like, we made so much gains. Part of the things that I'm sad about is with the day neuro program is it's an intensive program, but usually when patients leave day neuro, I would say like 95% of them, I'm making that number up, but it's they continue on with some kind of therapy. So that's what, is sad because it's like I know I'm not the last one to get you where you want. And then but I get to help build that momentum and be that part of that chapter of your life.
Oh yeah, no, it's amazing how much you're able to do in such a short amount of time. Really, the body's amazing. The brain is. I had no idea about brain neuroplasticity until then. Um, and you're good at what you do. When I talk to people, and if I know anybody, I'm gonna try my best to get them up there with you, or in that facility specifically. I know there's other good facilities across the United States, but there is something special about what y'all do up there and the whole way that that's put together. I think the level of care is above and beyond, um, and I think it has a ton to do with the amount of recovery someone can get. I can imagine that if I had have been in a less, caring and professional, facility, that my recovery wouldn't have been near as substantial as it has been. Um, I cannot, give y'all enough praise and thanks for what y'all did for me. And I would do that and let anybody else know that as well. It's just, super important where you go to. So kudos to y'all for the hard work that you put in, because I know that's not an easy thing to, probably do every day. I can't imagine being on the other end. It's on my list of questions, and maybe we can kind of touch on that now. But you know, um, you have a life too, so that's your 9 to 5, so to speak. I realize, and I'm sure you have to compartmentalize a little bit of that. Um, you do spend a lot of time with, say, particularly me. We got hours in a day. We could have more. We're still friends now, and I feel like, and I'm very fortunate and blessed that to have ever known you. But how do you? I guess how do you go and do that every day, day in, day out, and maintain that care, and it not just be a mundane thing? What is it about the job, or your place that you work, or how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, you know, one thing, when I worked in patient rehab, working with older patients, kind of seeing that. And then one of the hardest things I tell people when I got down to day neuro was, I'm working with people near my age. And, that was very hard for me because there's a lot of people in the day neuro that they did nothing wrong. They just had something kind of medical happen, and this is where they ended up. And then, but then because of that, you guys have such high goals. You have families that you're there for. You're playing such a big role in their life still. And so I would say I always it puts a lot of pressure on myself because I'm like, I am that guy. They need me to get back to where they want, and so that pressure helps me go from day to day. It's like I have to give. I feel like I have to give my best every session. Like
Mhm.
I only get so much time a day with you. I only get so much time. I have to be the best physical therapist to have the best interventions, the best treatment for you guys every session. And so just that stress of that keeps me going from day to day. But I chose the physical therapy world. It chose me a little bit. But part of that is I like being able to help people. That is I if I had a backup degree, it's probably be somewhere behind a computer desk, everything like that, and I think I would hate it, you know? It's like working day to day. I, uh, I enjoy going to work, you know? I'm happy when I'm there. I'm singing, not
Oh
very
yeah.
well. But, you know, a lot of things in the PT world is about burnout. And then, from the burnout standpoint, that it's usually not working with the patients that's the burnout. It's a lot of the other factors. And so I'm blessed to be where I'm at. I felt like, when I went to school in Oklahoma, there are no day neuros. There's nothing like it. When I worked in Corpus, there are no day neuros. And so I feel very blessed to be where I'm at. And I never want to leave. And so it's like I have that desire every day to go there, make patients better. But like you mentioned, I have things on the outside world too that affect me. I have a baby girl, Melody. She's about 15 months, a little bit older. And she has a hard time sleeping. And when she has a hard time sleeping, that means I'm up. And then Friday, yeah, yesterday when I went to work, running on like 4 hours of sleep, it's you have to have a lot of patience in the physical therapy world, right?
Hmm.
You guys are, I mentioned before, going through one of the hardest times in your lives, and you guys can be angry, you can be frustrated, you can be all of those things, and that is okay. With that is I really have to do my best not to show that. And I felt like Friday there was somebody I was impatient with, and so I had to take a minute, go in the office, kind of just reset. Um, and then it is like you mentioned, it is a job, and I get paid for it. But it's there's so much things on the outside world that I live for too, right? My family, my faith, my
Absolutely.
God. And so, it's when I am work Jeremy is not that much different than outside Jeremy though, because it's like the person I am at work is the person I am at home, and I think I like to show that that's who I am.
Hmm.
You know?
No, and I think that your uplifting attitude, I mean, it is awesome. There was a lot of fun times had. Squats is something that everybody has to do um, to regain that strength, and it's good. Whether you've had a traumatic medical event or not. I mean, you should be doing that anyways. But somehow you were able to make that even fun for me. And then I was in turn able to share that same fun with other people that didn't want to necessarily participate or do it. But um, always was appreciative that you were always singing and just making things fun. And River still says squat like you say it every once in a while. River remembers you well. My son
Squat, squat,
River.
squat, 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 squat,
Yeah,
squat,
there
squats.
you go. He does that. Man, there's multiple things he does from the time that he was up there that you did. So you impacted him as well. And I hope uh, for him going through this that he was able to see um, the empathy and the love that y'all showed um, us, going through that, even though, and it took me a while to realize that there is the work, Jeremy, and that Jeremy actually has a life outside of that because my life revolved around going there day to day and trying to get better. As I got better, then I started seeing things through a little bit different lens and realizing that, hey, Jeremy's got stuff too. And I think y'all were about to have Melody when I was just first starting therapy and had her while I was in therapy, correct?
Yeah, so she was born May 2024.
Yeah. 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 So well, I mean, I had my stroke then. Okay. So my stroke was May 24th, 2024.
Yeah, so same time.
Yeah. Right in that same time frame. Pretty neat. And now we're talking, you know, over a year later, fortunately, by the grace of God and through a lot of hard work. So, super awesome. We had River when I was 40 and obviously, uh, had my stroke, when he was 7, about to turn 8, his birthday, or, actually I had it Yeah, I mean, that's right there, that same time frame. So I'm also glad that that didn't tarnish his birthday time. It could have been went a lot of different ways. It was the last place I expected to end up.
I was 32 when Melody was born, and my
Yeah.
wife's the kindergarten teacher, and I was asking her the other day, I was like, "When Melody gets to kindergarten, we're gonna be the old parents there."
Oh,
She
oh
was like,
man.
"A little bit, yeah."
Well, yeah. I mean, it's strange. You know, we have quite a few younger friends just because of the nature of it. We are the older couple in the groups, you know, and there's a lot of things we don't aren't part of or just don't have the energy to be part of because we are um the older ones. But you know, my buddies used to give me a hard time when we first had River and they called me Pawpaw Daddy. So um going back to stroke in general, I was reading something the other day and was just curious on your opinion of it. Um, and let me know if this is going somewhere we don't need to go, but they're showing that there's more young people having stroke these days than what typically has been in the past. So, and they really there's not been a lot of time dedicated yet that I can find on research and trying to figure out why. But I have some of my own opinions. But are you seeing a younger kind of generation running through the doors more now?
I think it's a little bit biased in the day neuro world because, one of the things, from a day neuro standpoint, we do accept Medicare patients. So, that traditional older patient population, except for we don't see very many of those just because of the fit for our program. But what we do accept is that commercial insurance. And so that commercial insurance is going to be those people that are younger, working full time careers, everything like that. So I do feel like we see that. And so we definitely do have a higher age. We see a younger age population having a stroke. And then like you could go in there and look, and I don't feel like there's not like one thing that you could point to that's like, hey, they did this and that's why they had it. There's so much else going on kind of for you, like, from your standpoint, from why you had your stroke is so much different than why we have a few other people in the day neuro right now, why they had a stroke. But I definitely, I could definitely feel like there could be an uptick in that stroke in the younger population, and then that could be a lot of environmental factors, what they're doing, dietary factors, stuff like that. But then you still just genetics play a huge role in that too, that I feel like. And so I would say yes, probably a little bit higher uptake, but then like I wouldn't even know where to like point to like, hey, this is why or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. And I wouldn't expect you to, but it is something that I'm interested in and trying to research right now on my end because I'm still somewhat of a mystery of what caused my clotting. They know what caused the stroke, but the reason why I had so much clotting is still unexplained. So I have some tests coming up from another doctor that I'm trying out just to see if they're try to figure out something. I mean, it's just at this point, blood tests don't point towards anything. There's a lot of research I've done myself on things that are caused, but through that research, I just keep finding that younger people are having strokes more often these days, from what I'm reading. I could, like I said, I'll I'll leave that in my hands to
Yeah.
to look
And I
around.
mean, I think with where we're at in the world now and technology and being able to look things up, I think we're also seeing that more and more because now we have the better ability to go and search those things. And so we can do that. And then so people are eventually going to do these research studies just looking at the data. And then I think they are going to be able to find out why more and more people are having strokes. One of the questions I always ask in my initial evals, if I don't see it in the notes, which a lot of times they don't kind of allude to it, is like, what caused your stroke?
Mhm.
Usually people don't just have a stroke. There's
Right.
something that led to that stroke.
Right.
Most of the time, it is something cardiac related. They went into AFib and the AFib caused a clot and that clot went to the brain. Or they have a clotting disorder, or they got a clot somewhere else from immobility or from other things. We hear about these famous athletes who end up getting like a DVT, a deep vein thrombosis in
Hmm.
their leg, they pretty much, or in their lungs, a pulmonary embolism. And so it's like Chris Bosch is a big one for that because it pretty much ended his career. But it's like, what caused that? And the thing is, like, if you get a clot somewhere, that clot can then move to the brain and cause a stroke. So I think, the big thing is trying to figure out what caused it because, once you've had one stroke, you're at a higher risk for a second.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's unfortunately something as a stroke survivor that you have to deal with, something I deal with on a daily basis. I do my best to just move on and live life. I still have that clot in my heart that's almost gone, but not completely gone. So there's a constant thought of what if I am back in day neuro? I'd prefer never to see you that way again, but it is a possibility. So for me, I'm doing everything I can. I know a lot of people go through that. Unfortunately, they'll go through that whole process, regain a whole lot, and then go back to living the way that they lived before. And I really think that's a shame to not learn from your mistakes. I was working out. I thought I was pretty healthy. Even though they don't know what happened to me, I've gone to other extreme measures as far as trying to cut out as much sugar as I can out of my diet, processed foods. There's lots of things, there's a whole argument over this cholesterol deal, which I don't totally buy into. I really feel like the sugar is a bigger problem, or was for me. Um, and I remember Dr. Connolly coming in, and which was my neuro-optometrist, and I'm hoping that he's going to come on the podcast eventually too. And he said he would like to do that. But he came in, and I was drinking a Dr. Pepper and eating a Reese's Pieces, and he was like, "Dude, no, 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 no." And at that point, I really wasn't willing to give that up. I'm like, man, I gave up. I've lost everything. I'm not giving that up. That's like my breakfast of champions. Yeah. Um, but that's like a big time treat now that I separate out pretty far. It's not that I don't have that still every once in a while, but it's not a every day or every other day thing. It's more like, you know, once a month or once a week at the most, and that's still probably too much. Anyways, that's kind of a whole nother rabbit hole that I probably shouldn't jump
That's a whole
down, but
nother podcast episode there.
yeah, it is. But I think my point was just that y'all do a lot of work to get us there. I'm trying to honor that by doing better myself and taking care of myself, and then I'm trying to share with others how we can do that. Hopefully motivate them to take better care of themselves as well.
It's
So
like we can help you build those foundations, but depending on what you build that foundation on, when you leave us, we can't keep putting those pillars in for you, then you got to be able to do that yourself.
that's right. Yeah, I mean, there's strange things that I still remember. I was talking with somebody else the other day, and it's like these little seeds get dropped along your life, and you remember those things. Just certain things that people tell you don't leave you. Things that your mother or your grandmother maybe have told you, or your grandfather told you. Um, that keep you lead you in a certain direction. And one thing that it's funny, every time I walk, I think about you for numerous reasons, but I never really paid attention that my arms moved a certain way with my cadence and my walk. I just kind of took I mean, my arms just move. You're like, well, I didn't see you walk beforehand, but I'm pretty sure you didn't walk like a robot, like what I was doing. So, one of the simple things it wasn't simple at the time. Now it seems more simple, but one of the things that you taught me was that movement of my arm, and how it moves when I walk. And I know, for you, that may seem just like another thing, and that just as part of the gig. For me, it sticks with me. So like a walk, And I think about you because I'm like, is my arm? Oh yeah, my arm's moving around. Okay.
I'll have some of my patients tell me it's like, yeah, I like they hear me in their sleep telling them, get your toe up, don't don't drag your foot, all those kinds of things. Yeah, make sure your arms are moving. One of the big things I remember from you is, you were moving around, but we have a space between our feet. The base of support that we have, and one of the things to help with your balance is to improve that base of support. You can increase it out a lot, but people don't walk with feet between their feet. Usually, you just have an inch or so, and that's why I remember with you is I always I set up. Kind of like an airplane landing, right? They have to land between these lines,
Yeah.
making you walk between those lines and not having your feet knock over those cones.
Right.
And so, but you have to have that balance to be able to bring that in. And you had things affecting your balance. And so, first thing we had to improve the balance to then be able to get to where we could have those better walking mechanics.
Yeah, I think that's and I'm sure you see it a lot. Excuse me, but we take for granted some of these things that we do naturally. We walk. We learned from our childhood, or even from conception. These things we've been learning naturally. Already fell, learned how to walk. All of those things, and I felt like I had to learn all that again. I mean, is that a pretty accurate description of what that's like?
Now that I have a small a small child, absolutely. Melody falls all the time, but the thing is, she's a lot closer to the ground than what my patients are, right? When you
Yeah.
guys fall, there's a lot more coming down, and so yeah, absolutely. That's why I tell my patients, it's like you've been walking this way for 30, 40, 50 years. Now you're having to remember how to do it all over again,
Hmm.
and then while you're also doing that, you're not just walking, right? You're thinking about things, you're working in your head, all of those kind of things. And so, we in the day neuro world, we get some people that they're doing okay physically, but as soon as you make them do a cognitive task at the same time as a physical task,
Oof.
things just break down.
Yeah.
Your brain is thinking so hard about walking. As soon as you give that cognitive task, there's no way they can do it. They want to stop and then do the cognitive task, but that's one of the things we see. It's you're learning how to walk, but you're also learning how to walk, rub your stomach, pat your head all at the same time, right? You got to make that, we've talked about plasticity of the brain a little bit, but you have to challenge that brain to get it better. When you challenge it though, you're going to put yourself, some of the balance, especially when you do balance. If you're going to challenge your balance, you're going to put yourself at a risk for falling. But that's when the PTs, that's when we come there, and that's why we can keep you safe-ish.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I know we had some near miss, but I felt like you kept me very safe through that whole process. And I remember, and my dad talking about it too when we first came to Day Neuro. It's like, man, somebody needs to clean up this place. It's not like dirty. I'm not saying like needs to be dusted. More like there's stuff everywhere. There's stuff on the walls. There's stuff, there are challenges everywhere you go, and and I'm sure if y'all had a bigger area that probably wouldn't be quite like that. But at the same time, as I went through that process, I started realizing what all those things were for. When at first it really seemed rudimentary, and then why are there all these post-it notes everywhere? I mean, it's just annoying when you when you walk in there. But man, it was walking and rubbing your belly and tapping your head kind of thing. It's a lot harder to walk through there and find things that equal, you know, for instance, 10, find a number 10, however you can find it, or whatever it may be that you do while you're walking, while you're looking left and right. All these things that before the stroke, pre-stroke were just, I mean, you don't, all those processes are happening, but you don't even think about them. So brain's amazing, and what y'all do to pull those things out is just wild. It is a wild thing. How come you think? How come there aren't more day neuro programs available?
I've asked our director of rehab, Megan O'Malley, that question because I was like, how come, all these, there's not a lot around, especially in Oklahoma. I lived there 8 years, living in Bowie, I'm only 30 minutes from Oklahoma. So, I even thought for a long time I was going to stay in Oklahoma. But the big thing she mentioned was reimbursement. That's where it comes into is reimbursement. I don't know how exactly all that works. From a day neuro standpoint, in the PT world, you have different therapeutic codes that you can bill, like Therax, neuromuscular rehab. From a day neuro standpoint, we bill like one bill, like one code, which is like a day neuro program, and
Mm.
then that's how we get reimbursed for most of our patients. I went, it's not all of our patients. Um, but then I don't understand if it's just that because a lot of our insurance programs, though, like my Blue Cross Blue Shield that I have, it's out of Pennsylvania. It's not out of Texas and stuff like that. But from what I was told, it has to do a lot with reimbursement. So, but I would love to I want to say move to Oklahoma because that'd be a big thing, but to be able to help start a day neuro program in Oklahoma because I can't imagine all the people in Oklahoma City that are, dealing with the stroke and they just aren't getting the same kind of resources that patients are getting here. And the you can get rated in the US per se, like how well like healthcare is, how well education is and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely wish more states would have that availability. I get you're going to have to be in a big enough city to be able to have the population you need to be able to fill the clinic.
Mhm.
But then there are plenty of big cities around that don't have this. And yet
Absolutely.
in this Fort Worth, Dallas area, we are there's multiple, we have Baylor Scott and White, you have Pate Rehab, what's the other one? Uh, CNS. And so, there's multiples around this Fort Worth, Dallas area, but then you go down to Waco, there's nothing in Waco, anything like that. Austin has similar programs, but Corpus Christi doesn't have anything. Oklahoma City doesn't have anything. So yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. And well, and maybe it is a demographics thing. You would think Corpus Christi, which I realize that has an influx, kind of like Stephenville here, where there's people that come in during the night season and then they're out. So maybe there's not as much of a local draw, but you would think there would be plenty of people in the city size of Corpus Christi
Yeah.
to facilitate having a program. It's something I was curious of. Maybe one day I can get Megan to come on here and we can discuss that a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
And hopefully,
You're gonna have to get the higher ups to figure out
yeah.
exactly that question. I know a little bit, but not enough to.
Well, I have a lot of interest in it, and as we move forward with the nonprofit, the Broken Road Project, that those are things that I'm going to want to be part of if I can, just to better it. Because the whole point of this is to try to help as many people as I can with the
Absolutely.
time that I was
Advocate.
given. So, um, another question I had on here was how your faith has impacted your work in general, life, the things that you do. What makes Jeremy tick? And I know uh, we talked a little bit about it through my therapy sessions, but really haven't touched on it much. But I know you're a believer, so I'll let you have that.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned earlier, the Jeremy I'm at work is the Jeremy I'm at home, and that's because my faith drives me at home with my family, when I'm at work, when I go out in the community, everything like that. Uh we are told in PT school, there's only you have to be careful how you talk about certain things, and faith is one. Politics at work is another one, right? So you always kind of have to watch. There's a line there that you have to watch, but then the biggest thing is my faith drives me to be a driven person. My faith drives me to be a caring person. My faith just drives me in everything I do, and big part of faith though is teaching and sharing others with how great God is and what He's done for us. And so we have that opportunity at work to talk with that with our patients. But the biggest thing is from me at least is like, I'm not just gonna be like, hey, do you leave? But a lot of times things lead to that conversation.
Oh,
We get to
absolutely.
spend so much time with you guys, and part of that's just it's like, hey, what'd you do yesterday? What'd you do this weekend? And a lot of times it's oh, I went to church, and then so
Mhm.
then that kind of just brings up that conversation, so you can kind of have that conversation about faith. So it's you can never push faith in the workplace, right? You
Right.
might get in trouble for that. But it's so great when you can just have those meaningful conversations as you're working so hard to get back where you want. And I'm blessed that I can have those conversations with people. And I've had people from the church that I've known when I go worship, and then they end up in the hospital, and so then I can see them and treat them and everything like that.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of miraculous recoveries too. I feel like I was one of them. So I'm sure that that also just firms up and makes that foundation that much more solid when you're able to actually live that and see that day to day. Um, the amazing things that can happen,
Yeah.
especially through faith. And I don't know that my walk was where it, well, I know for 100% fact, my walk was not where it should have been. But I was raised in church and I was raised around it and knew uh, God and Jesus. But failed to follow um, in a way. And it's kind of like I felt like he grabbed a hold of me and woke me up, you know. So um, I'm not afraid to talk about it now. It was interesting for me when I went to do the training for the peer mentor program there with Baylor. That Baylor actually does um, support faith. Obviously, I mean, it is a Christian, they have a Christian base, but I really kind of thought at this point, you know, over the years and the way that the atmosphere is, you know, that they would keep that kind of low key. But in the training videos and everything else, it's still very much a part of what they're doing, or they say it is. So that was pretty. It was pretty neat to see that as well. To that. So I think I guess what I'm trying to boil that down to is I feel like that facility too. My dad said it. You know, I told him, I said I felt like there was something special about it. He said, "Well, God's walking through that place. Jesus is walking
Yeah.
with those people. You know, there's no doubt." Um, and I yeah, it woke me up. So I feel very blessed that I landed there. And like I said before, I would try to get anybody in that facility that I could. And I hope over time we, I can be part of having make more facilities like that, you know. So
Absolutely. Faith plays such an important role in everything. And there's we talked about research earlier around just like why younger people are having strokes. There's research that shows those that are recovering from traumatic events that like this, it's like faith. They have better outcomes when they have strong faith, and how that faith can play a role in their healing process. And so yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, I've read some of that as well. And on top of just what they say, we've seen it.
Yeah.
So um
Yeah.
well, we're kind of running up close to an hour. I'm sure you got stuff to do on this weekend and a family waiting for you. Is there anything else inspirational that you could leave us with, or anything else that we haven't touched on?
I'm a man of few words, right? I will say, w- w- you're blessed, I'm blessed, and we're gonna use our lives to just bless other people, and
Absolutely,
that's why we're here, and we're gonna stay motivated, we're gonna stay driven throughout the rest of our lives to just help others in whatever way we can.
heck yeah, brother. I love that. Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your weekend to visit with me today. I know you're busy. busy guy all the time between the time you spend at work and then, your new baby running around. So,
That's it.
um, tell everybody hi for me
I
and
will.
have a good one.
All right. Love you, brother.
I love you too, man.